The night my house burned down, I didn't cry. I stood barefoot across the street, watching 27 years of memories dissolve into smoke, and I felt nothing. Until my son leaned toward me, eyes fixed on the flames, and whispered, "Not my problem anymore." That was before the fire investigator arrived. The house wasn't just wood and drywall. It was where I brought Daniel home from the hospital, his entire body no bigger than my forearm. It was where my wife, Miriam, painted the kitchen a ridiculous shade of yellow because she said sunlight should live indoors too. It was where grief moved in after she passed, and where Daniel and I learned how to live with it. That house held the echo of everything we'd survived. And that night, it burned. The fire started sometime after midnight. I remember waking to the sharp scent of smoke, at first faint, almost sweet, like something left too long in the oven. Then came the crackling, not loud, just persistent, like dry leaves being crushed. When I opened my bedroom door, a gray haze hung low along the ceiling. "Daniel," I called. No answer. He had moved back home 3 months earlier after losing his job. "Just temporary," he'd told me, avoiding eye contact. "I'll get back on my feet." I hadn't hesitated. Of course he could come home. He was my son. We'd always been close, at least, I believed we were. After Miriam died, it was just the two of us. I packed his lunches, sat in the front row at his school plays, drove him to college orientation with a cooler full of homemade sandwiches because I couldn't bear the thought of him eating cafeteria food on his first day. When he struggled in his 20s, career changes, relationships that didn't last, I told him what Miriam used to tell me: storms pass. You don't. So when he asked to come back, I saw it as another storm. Something we'd weather together. I moved through the hallway that night, smoke thickening with every step. I knocked on his door, then pushed it open. His room was empty. The bed was made. That's what I remember most clearly, the bed was made. Daniel never made his bed. I called his phone. It rang once behind me. He was standing at the front door. "Dad, we need to go," he said calmly. Too calmly. By then, the smoke alarms were screaming. Heat pressed against my skin. Somewhere behind the kitchen walls, something popped loudly. We ran outside just as the first tongues of flame became visible through the dining room window. Neighbors gathered. Someone wrapped a blanket around my shoulders. I watched firefighters move with mechanical precision, their silhouettes swallowed by orange light. Daniel stood beside me, hands in his pockets. That's when he said it. "Not my problem anymore." At first, I thought I'd misheard him. "What?" I asked. He didn't look at me. "It's just, maybe this is a sign. Fresh start. For both of us." A strange chill crawled up my spine, despite the heat radiating from across the street. "For both of us," I repeated. He shrugged slightly. "You've been holding onto this place like it's a museum." It stung, but not because it was cruel. Because it felt rehearsed. In the weeks before the fire, there had been small things. Comments that slid past me at the time. "You ever think about selling?" He'd asked one evening, scrolling on his phone at the kitchen table. "Why would I?" I'd said, rinsing dishes. "It's a lot of space for one person." "For two," I corrected gently. He'd given a tight smile. "For now." Another time, I'd come home to find him measuring the living room wall. "Just curious about the layout," he'd explained quickly. "If you ever renovated." Renovated. Sold. Fresh start. At the time, I thought he was trying to help. Trying to imagine a future where we both felt less stuck. I never imagined he was imagining something else entirely. The flames devoured the roof just after 1:17 a.m. I remember the timestamp because I kept staring at my watch, as if time itself would reverse out of guilt. Daniel didn't cry, not once. He checked his phone repeatedly, typing short messages, his face illuminated by the screen's glow. "Who are you texting?" I asked. "Insurance stuff," he said quickly. I googled some steps, figured I'd get ahead of it. Ahead of it. There was something unsettling about how prepared he seemed. I told myself he was being responsible. Mature. Maybe this was him stepping up. But then I realized something. He hadn't asked about the photo albums. He hadn't asked about his mother's jewelry box. He hadn't asked about anything inside. "Did you grab your laptop?" I asked him suddenly. He blinked, almost confused. "No, you don't seem worried." He exhaled slowly. "Dad, it's just stuff. Just stuff." I looked back at the house, our house, and for the first time, something inside me cracked. It wasn't just stuff. It was Miriam's handwriting on recipe cards. It was pencil marks on the doorframe measuring Daniel's height year after year. It was the dent in the hallway wall from the time he rode his bike indoors and swore it was a calculated turn. And it was gone. The fire truck stayed until nearly dawn. By then, the house was a blackened skeleton, steam rising from its ruins like the last breath of something living. That's when the fire investigator arrived. He was older, with tired eyes and a notepad tucked under his arm. He walked slowly around the perimeter, studying everything in silence. Daniel shifted beside me. "You don't have to stay for this," he murmured. "It's going to be a long process." "I'll stay," I said. The investigator approached us after nearly 30 minutes. His expression was unreadable. "Sir," he addressed me gently. "I'll need to ask a few questions." "Of course," he nodded, glancing briefly at Daniel before returning his gaze to me. "Was anyone else in the house tonight?" "No, just me and my son." He scribbled something down. "And your son, where was he when you first noticed the fire?" I opened my mouth to answer. But Daniel spoke first. "I was outside," he said. The investigator paused. "Outside?" Daniel swallowed. "Yeah, I couldn't sleep. Went out for air." I turned to him slowly. "You were outside?" I asked quietly. He didn't meet my eyes. The investigator looked between us. "And how long were you outside before your father came out?" Daniel hesitated. "Long enough," he said. The wind shifted, carrying the scent of charred wood and something metallic. The investigator closed his notepad. "There are a few things we need to examine more closely," he said carefully. "Some patterns that don't quite align." My heartbeat pounded in my ears. "Patterns," I repeated. He nodded once. "I'd like to schedule a formal interview later today." He walked away without elaborating. Daniel's jaw tightened. "See," he said, forcing a thin smile. "They always overanalyze these things." But I wasn't listening anymore. Because for the first time since the fire began, I wasn't looking at the ruins of my house. I was looking at my son. In realizing I didn't know where he had been when everything started to burn, I didn't sleep that morning. Daniel insisted we go to a motel 2 miles away. "Just for a few nights," he said, already at the front desk before I had fully agreed. He handled the paperwork, chose the room, paid with his card. It struck me as strange. He had been unemployed for months. "Where'd you get the money?" I asked quietly as we walked down the narrow hallway. "Freelance stuff," he replied. "I didn't want to worry you." There it was again, that careful tone, like he was managing me. Inside the room, I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at my hands. They smelled faintly of smoke. My wedding ring was blackened around the edges. Daniel stood by the window, scrolling through his phone. "Why didn't you tell me you were outside?" I finally asked. He didn't turn around. "It didn't seem important." "It seems important to me." A pause, then a sigh. "I couldn't breathe in there, Dad. I've been feeling trapped. I needed air." Trapped. In the house where he learned to walk. In the house that sheltered him through every storm. "Did you see anything?" I asked carefully. "Before I came out?" "No," he said too quickly. "I told you, I was just outside." His answers were neat. Too neat. Like he'd rehearsed them in the quiet before the flames. The investigator called at noon. His name was Mr. Alvarez. His voice was steady, almost gentle. "We've identified the origin point," he said. "The fire began in the dining room." The dining room, not the kitchen, not faulty wiring in the garage. The dining room. "There was no appliance running in that area," he continued. "And no electrical malfunction detected so far." I swallowed. "What does that mean?" "It means," he said carefully, "that we need to ask more questions." He requested that Daniel and I come to the station separately. Separately. Daniel didn't like that. "They're trying to divide us," he muttered when I told him. "That's how these things work." "These things," I repeated. He rubbed his face. "Investigations." I studied him. There were dark circles under his eyes, but not from grief. From tension. "Daniel," I said softly, "is there something you need to tell me?" He laughed. It sounded forced. "What would I need to tell you?" I didn't answer. Because I wasn't sure I wanted to hear it. At the station, Mr. Alvarez showed me photographs. Blackened beams. Collapsed ceiling. The dining room table reduced to twisted fragments. Then he slid one image closer. A small metal container. It had survived. "That was found beneath the table," he said. "Do you recognize it?" I stared at the photo. It looked like a fuel canister. The kind used for lawn equipment. My throat went dry. That's for the old mower," I said slowly. "It's kept in the garage." "It was not found in the garage." Silence pressed in around us. Was it used recently? He asked. Not that I know of. He nodded once, watching me carefully. There were also signs that the dining room smoke detector had been removed. Removed. I felt something inside me shift. I didn't remove it, I said. Did your son? I hesitated. The truth was, I didn't know. When Daniel came home 3 months ago, he'd offered to fix things up. Replace batteries, check wiring, small tasks that made him feel useful. One afternoon, I'd seen him standing on a chair in the dining room. Detector batteries dead, he'd said casually. Need help? I've got it. I never checked after that. At the time, I felt proud. He was taking initiative. Now, that memory felt heavier. Daniel was waiting outside when I left the station. What did they say? He asked immediately. They found the fire started in the dining room. He blinked once. Just once. Electrical? He asked. No. A pause. He looked away first. They found the fuel canister, I added quietly. His jaw tightened. It must have been knocked over during the chaos. It was under the table. Silence. Cars passed on the street beside us, their movement strangely normal against the storm building in my chest. Daniel, I said carefully, did you move it? He stared at me then, really stared. Why are you asking me like that? Because they also said the smoke detector was removed. For a moment, something flickered across his face. Not fear, resentment. You think I did this? He asked. I'm asking. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. You've been stuck in that house for years, Dad. You wouldn't sell. You wouldn't move on. Insurance money gives you a chance to start over. Insurance. The word landed like a dropped glass. How do you know what the policy covers? I asked. His lips parted slightly. Another silence. I looked into it, he admitted. Just in case. Just in case of what? He didn't answer. Back at the motel, the air between us felt different. Thinner. I replayed the night over and over. The made bed. The calm voice. The way he'd been outside already. And something else. When I first opened my bedroom door, before the smoke thickened, there had been a faint scent beneath it. Not just burning wood, something sharper, like fuel. I hadn't let myself think about it until now. Daniel packed a small bag that evening. Where are you going? I asked. Staying with a friend, just until this blows over. Blows over. Running won't help, I said. I'm not running. He zipped the bag closed. I just can't stay somewhere I'm being looked at like a criminal. I stepped closer. I don't want to believe you would hurt me. His eyes flashed. I didn't hurt you. Not I wouldn't. Not I couldn't. I didn't. Past tense. Controlled. Then tell me where you were, I whispered. Tell me why the canister was there. Tell me why the detector was gone. His shoulders stiffened. You've always loved that house more than anything, he said quietly. Even more than moving forward. That house was your mother, I said, my voice breaking. It was all I had left of her. He looked away at that. For a moment, I saw something raw in his expression. Not guilt, anger. You never asked what I needed, he said. The words cut deeper than any accusation. What did you need? I asked softly. He picked up his bag. You'll find out soon enough. He walked toward the door. Daniel, I called. His hand paused on the handle. There was a second, a single second, where I thought he might turn around. Might confess, might explain. Instead, he opened the door. As he stepped into the hallway, his phone buzzed. A message lit up the screen in his hand. I wasn't meant to see it. But I did. Claim filed. Waiting on confirmation. My heart stopped. Daniel froze. Slowly, he turned back toward me. And for the first time in his life, he looked like a stranger.